All right, guys, so this is how I'm planning on doing the notes while we're doing virtual. I tried it last year with the screen recordings, and people just weren't watching it. Obviously, if I make it's not optional, but it's practically optional if you don't want to do it. So students just didn't do it. Well, this way I can actually see who is actually watching the videos, whether you're paying attention or not. I can't force that, but I can actually see who is watching them, and I can put some type of formative assessment, within the videos. So today you just got a really short one to watch. Um, we did that activity, and it went okay, but as the activity evolves, it becomes more and more difficult to do virtually. So I'm just going to pull the plug. I'm sorry. I know some of you guys are actually enjoying it, but we just can't do it. So I'm just going to run through these notes really quickly. Hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. Usually it makes a lot more sense after the activity, but yeah. So we already talked about yesterday how it starts out. Someone has an idea. Anybody. You can write a bill. The president can write a bill. Congress can write a bill. Anybody can write a bill, but they have to give it to the congressman. And the congressman writes it up, and it gets a technical name like H.R. 376. It gets a name and a number. And it gets introduced, and then it gets sent to the right committee. And we talked about committees. Everything in Congress is done in committee. Okay? If I write a bill about farm equipment, they will introduce it and send it to the Agricultural Committee. If I write a bill about banking laws, they'll send it to the Finance Committee. If I write a bill about elections, they'll send it to the Election Committee. Okay? So they have people in these committees who are experts on their field. Someone from Indiana isn't going to go to I think Trey Hollingsworth, who's super rich, is on like one of the finance committees. Makes sense, right? People who are in business are on business committees. I mean, it just makes sense when you get put into committees where you go. When you're in committee, so when you guys were in committees yesterday, you had a few options. If you read a bill and you don't like it, you can literally just throw it in the trash and do nothing with it, and the bill dies. That's what happens a lot of the times. If you have a liberal bill and it's a conservative committee, they just won't do anything with it. They don't want it to pass. They're just going to not even do anything with it. They can also hold hearings, and this is something that we would have done the next round. And this is where you can have experts come in. So say you have a bill on this certain banking law, and you aren't sure whether you should pass it or not. You can have people come in and testify or give hearings about why you should pass it. This is where interest groups can come in and try to influence the committee members. You see these on C-SPAN and things like that, where they have people come in and testify and explain why it should pass. Then they can either approve it or deny it. So they can say, yep, we like this bill, we sign off on it, and we're going to send it to the next level, or they can do nothing with it. A lot of bills die in committee. Okay. In the House, not in the Senate, there is a special committee. And we would have done this today had we kept up with it too. So again, like I said, it's only in the House of Reps, not in the Senate. These people schedule bills to be debated on in the floor. So if it comes out of committee, it's got to be voted on by the entire House or the entire Senate, right? Well, in the House, there's a special committee it goes to before that, and they have to schedule it to be voted on. If this committee doesn't like the bill, they will never schedule it to be voted on, okay? So it's kind of like a second screening. Let's say this liberal committee passes this bill, and then it goes to a conservative House or a House Rules Committee. That conservative House Rules Committee said, yeah, we don't like this. We're not going to schedule it. So that's just another way the bills can die. Then it has to go to the House floor, where the entire House or the entire Senate altogether votes on it. Again, it doesn't have that extra step in the Senate. It just goes from committee to the Senate floor. But in the House, it goes from the committee to the House Rules Committee to the House of Representatives, the floor in general. And then they vote on it. If they pass it, it goes to the other chamber. So if the Senate passes it, it goes to the House. If the House passes it, it has to go to the Senate. And they do the whole process all over again. It goes back to a committee, and those committees debate it, and then it goes back to the floor, and they have to vote on it again. It has to be passed the exact same way. If the Senate doesn't like the bill, they can modify it, but then it has to go back to the House and go through the process again because it has to be passed the exact same way. Okay. Then when both houses decide to pass the bill, it goes to the president, and the president has a few options here. This is not a real picture. I just thought it was funny. Somebody modified that. This is the president signing a bill, though. Once it is approved by the House of Reps and the Senate, it goes to the president, and he can sign it, in which case it becomes law. He can do nothing, in which case, after set many of days, I think it's 10 days, don't quote me on that, it will automatically become law. So maybe it's something that he doesn't disagree with, but like his party might not like if he signs it. So maybe he just says, "Oh, I'm just not going to sign this," and then it becomes law. And he kind of didn't approve it, so he can kind of save face. He can veto it, in which case it's not a law anymore. Like he basically stops it, says, "Nope, this is dead, vetoed." Or he can do something called a pocket veto, and this is whenever you're at the end of a term. Let's say the congressional term runs out in 4 days, right? And he can do nothing. Well, it takes those 10 days to become a law. In 4 days, the session is over. So it's just basically there's not enough time for it to become a law on its own, and it dies. So a pocket veto is kind of like doing nothing, but it doesn't become a law, just because there's not enough time for it to become a law by itself. Okay. By the way, if he vetoes it, which we would have done this in class, I would have been the president, and I would have vetoed a lot of laws just to be frustrating. Usually only 2 or 3 laws get passed when we do this activity out of the 30 to 40. If he vetoes it, then Congress can overturn that veto. That's a check they have on the president when we talked about Congress. If he vetoes it, then it goes back to Congress, and if 2/3 of Congress says, we still want this to be a law, they can overturn his veto. But it's hard to get 2/3. Like right now, in the Senate, it's going to be looking like 50-50 or 49-51 Senate, so you're not going to get 66 senators to overturn a presidential veto. So that's pretty hard to do. So the presidential veto is pretty strong. Okay. And here's a quote by one of our former Congressman, Lee Hamilton. Congress simply isn't set up to be efficient and moves by inches for a very good reason. It was designed for deliberation, not speed. Okay, so I want you guys to translate that. On the Ed Puzzle, there'll be a section here for you to translate this. Okay, so, all right, that's all the notes for this section. That was quick and easy. This is kind of how we're going to do this from now on, so make sure you watch these and keep up with them. Okay, all right, I will see you guys later.